I got it.
Got it? It says record?
Yep.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
All right, all right.
What'd you think? I couldn't do it? Boy, give me all these instructions and it comes in.
Jerry Miro. I bought here in '99, and I bought a one-bedroom apartment in Nottingham. We were in that for a year and a half, and we liked it so much we wound up buying a two-bedroom in Zurich, which is where we are now. I also bought the unit right next door to my apartment in bad. Too close. Okay, how's that? All right, let me know when I'm doing something wrong. I bought the apartment right next to mine, the unit, because my father wasn't well, and I thought that I would put him in that unit when I needed to be closer to him, or he needed to be closer to me. And then finally, I bought my fourth unit that was allowed. I bought my fourth unit in the St. Moritz, which was a foreclosure. And basically, I bought it because I was trying to get together a limited liability company to go after all of our foreclosed units. And I wanted to see if that really worked. So I did that by buying one and remodeling it and renting it, and then trying to sell the concept to the board. So that's who I am, and I've been here, as I say, since '99. Basically, I want to give you my journey. I hope if anybody's in a rush, I'm who I am, and I need to communicate the way I do. I'm sorry if you only want to hear what you want to hear, but this is my story. Okay, that basically this is my journey till now. Why I am interested in a recall. Alrighty. I started getting involved in politics here when my father got sick, and I had to spend all my time in Florida to care for him in 2008. And I was asked shortly after my father's sickness and brought me to Florida, because I'm only here for 6 months normally. I was asked by Gloria Gershkopf, who was the president at the time, and there was a vacancy on the board that had been provided by Clive Bates, who had resigned. And Gloria asked me if I would mind being on the board. And since I was here anyway, on a year-round basis, taking care of my father, I accepted that. Shortly thereafter, within a matter of days, Gloria asked me if I would mind being president, because she was president, and she had a problem with her husband. Her husband was not feeling well, and I accepted that to help out. I didn't know what I was getting into, really. I've been a business owner where my whole life, and I know what it is to be the president, but not with 8 other people behind you. I didn't know what that was involved. Anyway, I did accept, and I got involved, and I found out as president the most difficult thing was really to be able to know where the people who are on your side of the board are coming from. You knew where the people that were against you. I had 3 people against me. They didn't even recognize me as president. And that's what they said at the board meeting. We don't recognize you as president because you were appointed. But I had 5 other people that did recognize me. And I found that it was really difficult getting them behind me to do what needed to be done. In any case, I was president from September through the election. And I did run for election, but I failed by 13 votes. I lost to Michael Schenkel, Dan Coco, and Terry Klobb. And I was running alongside with Michelle Tersigny. And it was a mystery to me because I knew Terry Klobb was not even a known person. He was here, but he was never been to meetings. No one really knew him. And so I asked to inspect the ballots after the election. I inspected them and I found some irregularities, but I did find also that it was nice not to be on the board. So I didn't really fight it. It turns out later we hear from one of the board members that very possibly one of our board members was tampering with the election and stuffing ballots. but I only can thank him for that, you know, because my life has been peaceful, and I've been able to watch what's going on from the outside rather than being involved. So,
That was the election after, not the election you're talking about.
no, this was the election that I ran in against Terry and, or if you don't understand, yes, ma'am.
No, it was,
was
you
two-
wanted to look at the ballots when Scott was president at the beginning of the year?
I looked, yeah.
That was for this past year.
All right,
It wasn't-
listen, let me tell
but-
my story.
okay,
Let me
no,
tell
I'm
my
just
story.
saying-
If you want to correct my story, fine, okay? This gets the essence. This gets who I am and where I'm coming from. All right, so let's jump forward. All right, I just letting you know that I've been involved.
How do you get the damn thing to us? I wonder who touched it.
Here, will help us.
I've,
A chair, let's get him a chair.
I've been involved with the board. I know the players here. I have a lot of respect for what they do. I'm not always happy with how they do it, but at the same time, I understand the frustration that, Doug, you'll have your chance to talk. Okay, I understand. You don't have to answer them just because they ask you. Okay? So, because I lose my concentration. I'm trying to get this together and get off here so you guys can talk, because I'm more interested in what you have to say than what I have to say. I know what I have to say. Alrighty? So, moving forward, we got into the election with where, well, Mr. Samuels was disappointed, even though he had picked the winners of that election where I lost. And those 3 board members didn't go with him, and that was a whole ugly scene for that year. But the next year, Mr. Samuels did succeed, and he became the president. And it was interesting. It was interesting, and I was watching with interest because he was getting things done. Already, he has a beautiful system here that is just lovely. He got involved with Michelle, who had some interest here to get things done, and he did it in an unusual way in that he did it first, and then he asked the board to ratify it, which I found, you know, he getting things done. Alrighty, so basically, I'm looking at what we have now, and from the Scott and then the Michelle portion, everything I was watching until we got to May 8th, okay? On May 8th, we had an event. We had a special board meeting that was called. And basically, the 2 items of the special board meeting was officially putting Terry Tersigni on the board and establishing a contract for our new property manager. Those items were brought up quickly and dispensed with quickly, and then immediately after that, taking care of business, they wanted to add an agenda item to that same meeting, and Terry was called upon to do that. He was all prepared. He had it all in writing and quotation, and he did that. He made the motion to add an item to the agenda, and basically what the item to the agenda was to approve reducing $4,100 in fees on 2 units that were being purchased.
Assessments.
They're saying it's too loud.
Go ahead, keep going.
It's too loud in the back.
Thank you.
We're
Not
trying.
assessments.
Okay. They were $4,100 on 2 units. It's not assessments, 2 units fees that were put on for, I guess they were late payments or non-payment of maintenance and other charges, whatever, that's what it was. And the board was being asked to put on the agenda the removal of those items on those 2 units. And we had the tape of the meeting, and it turns out that while Michelle had turned over the chairmanship of that meeting because Terry's election was involved, she turned it over to Ed Kaufman, our treasurer. And Ed did chair the meeting, without telling us that he was the buyer of those 2 units. Okay, so we didn't know that until over 25 minutes into the meeting, that he was the buyer. The minutes of that meeting, which I believe was prepared by Michelle, does not indicate the vote on the added item to the agenda. But fortunately, we have the video, so we know what the vote was. It was 5-2, and they needed 5 votes. Alrighty, so even though Ed was the buyer of that unit, when they voted to add that item to the agenda, Ed voted to add that item to the agenda. At the end of the meeting, when it came to vote whether to remove those fees or not, Ed decided that it wasn't proper for him to vote on that item, so he didn't vote on that item. All right, I'm just putting facts out there for you, and these facts are all in the picture. Subsequently, we have a owner who doesn't live here by the name of Ilan Weiss, who found fault with that and is suing us on that. But back to me, because this is really my story. After that meeting, I was very upset. Very upset. This was in May, and I was saying to myself, these guys need to be recalled. And I was talking to myself. And then at the same time, I remembered when I was on the board and we couldn't get things done. And I said to myself, you know what? I know Doug Myers, he's very bright. I understand, correct me if I'm wrong, he graduated summa or magna cum laude. He's certainly no dummy. He's very accomplished. He's built himself a nice situation here. So I like Doug. I played ping pong in his house and he beat the pants off of me. Okay, we have conversations and they're civil conversations. I really never yell with him and he never yells with me. I just don't care how he does things. And in this particular case, I was pissed because they could have done it up front and they didn't do it up front. Alrighty? So anyway, I was bothered, but I said to myself, is this time for a recall? Or maybe this guy can do something and get the board moving like Scott was doing things, Michelle was doing things. So I kept quiet. I just watched, just continued to watch what was going on. We come up to now, and Doug and the board has taken care of the tennis court. I'm an investor. I'm thrilled that the tennis court looks good and the gym is new. I would have recommended to Doug, if he didn't do it all by himself, that he have some equipment that have the little pins that us older folks can use so that we don't have to schlep the weights. You know, he built it for what he considers the future, and since he's such an athlete himself, he never thought really about us older folks. So if he had a committee instead of doing everything by himself, it would have been a little bit different. But anyway, for me as an investor, it's great. One of my tenants is in love with that gym, and he didn't like the other gym, so that's good.
I asked a lot of people, Jerry.
Well, you never asked me. So anyway, I am to the point last week where I called a town hall meeting to discuss the documents that were sent to us, because I wasn't really happy with the amendments. Plus, I thought we needed a forum to discuss those things, and I thought that meeting went well. At that meeting, and this is the reason to me why we have this meeting tonight, Doug came up front, and he spoke. I don't know how many people here, but I would guess there's 75 people here. He said to you, folks that are assembled here, he said, you folks don't represent the majority of the ownership here. There's 832 units. What are you? You 60 people, 70 people? You don't recommend the majority of the ownership. Well, I was offended by that. You know, I was offended by that because to me, you represent the heart of the community. Okay, and you have control of a lot of votes besides your own, because you know a lot of people that aren't here, whether they're snowbirds or whatever. So that was offensive. Then that was reiterated the next day at the board meeting by Jennifer. Jennifer said the same thing. She represents the majority. I looked at the voting, which I have here, and she wound up with 223 votes. And I venture to say there's 60 or 70 people in this room that voted for her. And she is telling you, you know, your votes really don't count because she represents the majority, 417. And she has spoken. Well, I understand that you don't have to listen to us. You don't have to listen to us because we don't represent the majority. I disagree with that. I think we represent the heart of the community, the people who are interested. And so this became to me the Douglas Meyer Challenge. Myers, I apologize. This is the Douglas Myers Challenge. If Doug is right, and we don't represent the majority of the votes, then he's entitled to lead us where he wants and doesn't have to listen to us, okay? So my recommendation, Doug, you have your chance, okay? My recommendation is to test it. From my observation, Doug ran 2 candidates in the last election, Raphael Cespedes and Sinovia Regnari, and one got 80 and one got 88. So to me, that is what Doug can achieve. He represents 88 votes, which is very significant. That's a significant voting block, okay? But that's all he represents. He doesn't represent 417, the majority, and certainly Jennifer doesn't either, okay? So that's where we stand. Is Doug right? And the only reason, I love Doug. You know, Doug is a nice guy. He's a nice guy. He has accomplished, he accomplishes things. He accomplishes things for the village, but he doesn't do it in the right way. That's all. And I would say everything that he does would be fine if he can get away with it as long as he's not on the board. As long as he's not on the board, because if he's not on the board, then the board can oversee what's going on. If he's on the board, then the board doesn't have the opportunity to oversee because he's such a smart guy. Example, I never thought in my life that he would be able to appoint 2 members to the board. I mean, I had been working with Michelle for over 6 months, and Michelle was avoiding letting Dan Coco get on the board in the worst way. And I was dealing with Terry and with Michelle, and Michelle asked me if I wanted to be on the board. I said, you know, I'm only here for 6 months. I'm not the right one to ask, okay? But in the end, Doug was able to realize, because he's so smart, that he could make a deal with Paul Pickus, because Paul desperately needed board approval to sell his unit. And he could make a deal with Stuart Wolf because Stuart didn't want to take a chance on his son being elected to the board. So he was able to get Stuart and to get Paul to come to a meeting that never would have happened. And I advised both of those guys not to go, but he's smarter than I am. He got them to go, and he got them to appoint Dan and Doug. That was the deal. I'll tell you. He's lucky for him. He's lucky for him. And now we're trying to address that. All righty, we're trying to address that. So again, if he's right, and his mother's right, because his mother, listen, mother, if you want to get involved, I'll get you involved too. Okay? If you want to get involved, I'll tell about going to court with the hairdresser. Okay, I'm familiar with that. Okay, all right, fine. I don't want to go there. All I need you to do is shut up. Fine, okay. Is that a legal term, stupidity? Is that a legal term? That's what I thought. All right, look, we're trying not to get there. We're trying not to get there. But what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to have a divorce without war, or a recall without war. All righty? And to me,